Hi, my name is John and today I will talk about peak water. I've been spending time with peak water like 2 months and now I'll feel ready to share my thoughts on this. Before starting out, in order to understand what peak water is aiming to do, we have to go into water chemistry, not so much. But if you say, I'm not interested in water, just straight talk to peak water, you can go to this minute and second. A quick disclaimer, TDS, which I will talk about soon, is not actually the only parameter in water chemistry, and it's a very deep subject. So one of the co-founders of Peak Water has a book about this, water chemistry. TDS, which means total dissolved solid, has a unit of measure, ppm, parts per million, which tells us how many solid particles are in a million liquid particle. What the instruments are measuring is the conductivity value of the liquid which we immerse in it. So, when we say the TDS of water is 100, we are talking about 100 ppm dissolved solid in the liquid. In this dissolved solid part, 3 ions step aside for the water that we will use in coffee. These are calcium, magnesium and sodium. That is the TDS we measure. In fact, generally tells us the amount of these 3 ions in water. As the number increases, the conductivity increases and also the TDS number. Let's start with the amount in tap water roughly. In my hometown, the TDS value of the tap water is approximately 500 ppm. And for the benchmark, Specialty Coffee Association gives the target 150 ppm, while suggested being in the range of 75 to 250 ppm. On the other hand, this is also informational purpose. The target TDS value of water used in the World Brewers Cup is 85 ppm, and the range accepted in the competition is 50 to 125 ppm. I'm aiming to give you the sense of the scale. Most importantly, there is no wrong or correct number, which I will talk about later. In summary, we do not want high TDS values, which means loss of minerals, or zero TDS water, which has no minerals. We are aiming between this range. Anyway, if we go back to the peak water, the main purpose of peak water is to soften the water, which means to bring the TDS value from tap water to the suggested values in order to have a better experience while drinking coffee. Now we can move to the table and talk about the parts and how we operate the peak water. The first part is the body, this one. The second part is the inner part called liner, and the third part is the cover and the adjustment mechanism. The last part is the most crucial one, is the filter, which is the core of this equipment. Although the filter is a single piece, it actually contains 2 different filtering mechanisms. The first is a resin that provides ion exchange, especially adjusts the bicarbonate value. The second part consists of activated carbon that holds unwanted organic compounds. Now let's get the system running now. At first, we will place the filter in the liner, and then we will have the setting part to release, and okay, we will place the cover part, and then lastly we need to place this one into peak water. Now it's operational. The capacity of peak water is 1.2 liter, which means it can filter 1.2 liter of tap water in a single run. You just pour the water you want to filter from the upper reservoir and choose the appropriate setting here, which takes place on the top part. To determine the proper setting, let's move to the startup procedure. First, you need to keep the filter in a container filled with tap water for 10 minutes. Then, place this filter into peak water, and you need to perform 3 runs at the 5th setting and pour that water into the sink. You can start using your peak water in the 4th run. Before that, of course, we need to understand which setting you will adjust. To indicate this, you will use the test kit to measure the TDS level of your water. After keeping this test paper in 200 ml of water for 5 seconds, we take it out and wait for 10 seconds. Initially the color is yellow, then it will turn into another color according to the TDS value of your water. Here, according to that final color, it's recommended to use your peak water in the setting corresponding to the final color on the sheet. Now we can move on to the numerical part. The TDS value of the water flowing from my faucet is about 490 ppm. If you bring it to the 5th level as the kit suggested, you reach 142 ppm in like 4.5 minutes, which is close to the target value of SCA. 4th level provides 353 ppm and the 3rd level 425 ppm, which means very mild of filtering. Well, the answer to the question of what to do if you want to reach the water quality in terms of TDS, as in the World Brewers Cup, is very simple. You will refilter and pass the water through peak water more than once at the 5th setting. For the first run, we have reached 142. When I filtered this water again, the number that I achieved is 72 ppm, which is close to the target value of the World Brewers Cup. According to your starting point, your results may differ. At the end of the day, it's a tool which gives you the flexibility to play with these numbers. And the most expected part, whether there's a taste difference or not when you use peak water. The answer is yes, but I think the part when it occurs is more important, especially when you follow the roaster's advice. You get results closer to the taste profile written on the coffee bag, because the roasters get these results with the water they specify and use for their own coffee and optimize their roast accordingly. A good example, when I talked to Ivica, the roaster of the Café Circular, he said that the best range for the coffees he roasted is between 10 to 50 ppm. Normally, there is an opinion that this range will produce a flat coffee due to its low mineral values, and also it is outside the range suggested by SCA. But when you actually stay within the specified range, results are closer to the taste notes written on the coffee bag. In the meantime, there is no rule of thumb, but in theory, for dark roast coffee with soft water is eager to produce a more balanced cup. For light roast coffees with higher TDS values, harder water, you're likely to achieve a proper extraction. As I said, there is no such concept as the correct number, and the best source is the roaster himself or herself. Peak water does fancy things, but of course these fancy things cost us. If you act like me and buy a starter pack which includes a peak water and a filter and 2 spare filters, you will pay £69 in UK, and it varies slightly for other regions. For example, I'm living in Turkey. With the actual exchange rates, I pay like £85. When you pay this amount, you have a peak water and 3 filters. The price of 2 filters is £25. If you are going to use hard water, the filter life is 60 liters. For soft water, it is 120 liters. And it's recommended to change the filter every 2 months, whether you reach these numbers or not. If you do not actually run a cafe like me, it means that you will probably change the filter for every 2 months before reaching the dedicated numbers. So, there's an investment cost and you will have an operating cost. Just think about it while deciding to buy. For me, the cost between peak water and the bottled water is irrelevant, because peak water gives you the flexibility to play with these TDS figures. Do you need peak water, or am I suggesting you to buy? If your friends, wife, sister, etc. thought that you're spending ridiculous amounts of money for coffee or coffee related items, please do not think a second, just go and buy it. At least it's a meaningful purchase. If you do not have these accusations yet, it's better to start with a TDS meter and measure the TDS value of different water and try to understand the concept and the relationship between the softness and the taste. If you have any questions about peak water, you can write down or you can contact me on Instagram. That's all for today. See you next time.